I'm David Everest. I'm Secretary of Mining for Twin Cedar Mining District and the owner of Twin Cedar Mining District LLC. And I've been in communications with the White House, and he promises to open logging and mining again, especially iron, since I have a really huge iron mine, a very good one. And he's wanting the pipeline to be built out of steel, which requires iron. This is all the work I've done in the last year. And I only have one copy left. I need it to be given to the 3 commissioners and Wally Hicks. I'll enter it into the record.
Yeah, just give it to Wendy.
Thanks a lot.
The reason why I handed you that is because I'm not going to read all that. I've read it a dozen times. And there's no time. So I'm requesting a mining summit held by the miners districts at the county fairgrounds, and we invite you 3 commissioners and every 3 commissioners in all the mining districts and all their county attorneys and in Northern California, and we coordinate appointing a trustee to the grant of 1872, 1870, and 1866, the covenants of the trust. And secondly, we get an audit of accountability. And I have been invited for a takings case by the USDI Inspector Generals. The problem is I need a trustee to sue, and because I can't find an attorney that is competent. So this would be with the Glease Mining District, Twin Cedar Mining District, and all the other ones, which there's being new ones formed every day. And we hold this summit with the county attorneys and the county commissioners and supervisors, and it's not open to the public. This is government-to-government coordination, and we invite the USDI, BLM, Secretary of Interior when he's confirmed. And then we invite the DOD because they want to build a rare earth strategic mineral reserve that I found that Congress passed in the National Defense Authorization Act. So far, I'm the only one in my company that's asked for the charter for private, because they're putting it out privately because the DOD has failed. They don't know about mining. So if I am granted that grant, there's $58.5 billion available, and I would start training programs and through the universities and educating on mining. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Everest. Anyone else? Ms. Casanelli?
Sandy Casanelli, Merlin, Oregon. Well, since Mr. DeYoung mentioned me by name and saying that I was accusing the board of patting their pockets, perhaps I could come to Mr. DeYoung's office sometime and help you read the adopted 2006 budget for the county, because the commissioner's office is one of the offices that does get money from the Administrative Internal Services Fund. This last budget, it was to the tune of $541,000, and the sheriff does have the ISF fund taken out of his budget. So you are directly benefiting. Where do you think all the travel money comes from? And the salaries for the secretaries and everything. It's very disconcerting because we have voted down 9 times since 2004 countywide appeals for money for the sheriff. It's not that we don't want the sheriff to succeed, it's that the public cannot afford increases in their property taxes. It's very disingenuous, I believe, of this board to once again come before the public, especially since our new 2 commissioners ran on a platform that they would not do exactly what they're going to do today. I'm disappointed that you will go ahead with the administrative policies for the confidentiality of complaints. In the last hearing that we had Julie Schmelzer said that the county planning department could not even keep up with the complaints that they already had. So why are you making it more accessible or easier to file more complaints? It doesn't make sense. Let's see what else. Oh, well, let's talk about the minutes. It says on the agenda minutes, the draft minutes are available for viewing at the board's office. You know, in this age of technology, it's so easy to include the minutes in the documentation for the agenda. You could put a watermark on it that says draft if you think it's too confusing for the public to know that it's a draft. Normally what they do is once it's approved in the corner, they mark it draft. So, you know, that's something we really should have access to with the documentation. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Seligman?
Mark Seligman, Selma, Oregon. I echo Sandy's views on citizens' complaints. You really need to look at the 1990 law where it says generally 3 complaints. You're going around the voters and what they voted for in 2013 by this administrative actions. The voters will make note of this. This is an end around. The voters will not appreciate that. If you win a lawsuit or get unforeseen money from the state or the federal government, my question is, would you end the levy? Regarding not knowing the facts, Commissioner DeYoung or Commissioner Morgan, because Simon Hare certainly knows the facts, when you run for office, you should know the facts. You should know what's down the road in such a small time frame, but you didn't level with the people. You misled the people. You told them you would not push for a levy. In fact, what you did say was you're going to go along with the voters. You're not going along with the voters because you've learned something else. You're still not going along with the voters. And what are you going to do if the voters vote no? Are you going to go along with them now, or are you going to put another levy in the future? By not listening to the voters, you erode your trust. And I thought we would start out on a nice plane. Let's see. The suggestions given yesterday, there's several fine suggestions. I would say you should use these suggestions rather than put a levy on the ballot. Commissioner Morgan, the lead petitioner was All Care. They donated $5,000 to your campaign. And all the reasons you gave and all the knowledge that you didn't know then, they knew then. So you should have known that. Certainly they made it very clear when they gave you $5,000. The bottom line again is you too, Commissioner Morgan, said you would listen to the voters, and you're not. This is 10 times, and this is November. Non-tax-based revenues, that's not going to happen. You are going to get this, you might get this levy, and then the rest I'm sure will be forgotten about. And lastly, fixed income, low income, people in debt. Those are the people I'm concerned with. You say you took a pay cut? Did you go as low as $31,000? Crying about coffee, crying about your budget. People would like your salary. The average income in Josephine County is $31,000, not your pay. This board is going down the wrong road. If you don't listen to the people, the voters will vote against you. And I'm really glad you're going to put all this on the ballot, because the voters could vote down every one. It's too bad something like the animal shelter would have to lose. It's really sad that our elected officials do not represent us. And there will come a time when they will.
Yes. Anyone else? Ms. Ahrens?
Judy Ahrens, resident of Josephine County. I have something that's really very alarming, and I wanted to just share it with this community and leaders of our community. Rob Pell puts out from his Sunshine Natural Foods, he puts out a monthly letter. And this one is just really close to my heart because just became a grandmother with a new little baby son, Micah, born a month ago. So it has to do with vaccines. Very, very, very scary stuff. There's a video out called Vaxxed. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but I'm going to be surrounding the churches and community leaders, anybody to listen to me, to find out what's happening. And here's just a little preview of Vaxxed. He says in his little monthly newsletter, Vaxxed is a meticulously documented account of disturbing deception and corruption at the CDC. That's the Center for Disease Control. That is putting people's lives at risk. It's a movie. Senior CDC researcher Dr. William Thompson reveals results of the DCC trial proving that cramming multiple vaccines into very young little children can create devastating side effects. Even worse, his supervisors at the CDC has already covered up. And just give you a little item of what's going on in California. California has recently passed and mandated that kids get vaccinations before they come to the public schools. And the California has leveraged to pass a law mandating that children receive the CDC, Center for Disease Control, vaccine schedule, which is 49 vaccine doses per child before first grade. 49 doses of vaccines. Parents in that state can no longer opt out or still send their kids to schools or daycare, public or private. I'm going to make sure Salem finds out about this too. So please remember, public health records are crystal clear on this. Measles in the country were reduced by more than 97% before the vaccine was even introduced. Proved sanitation probably deserves most of the credit. And more recent data reveals a larger story revealing vaccines. The special vaccine court payouts for vaccine damages in the United States increased 400%. Let me repeat, 400% in 2015 from 2014. And payouts for damages caused by the flu shot increased the most, 1,000%. Most flu shots still contain mercury. You know, it's conservative for stuff, which we don't need in little kids' brains. And those that don't typically use formaldehyde. This is what we use for rats. Formaldehyde, that's a preservative instead. And so even if that, I'm just skip down here, even if you believe that any one vaccine is relatively safe, public health officials have never, ever proven or attempted to prove that it's safe or to inject in infants, children, etc. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Jay, Mr. Meredith.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jay Meredith, resident of Grants Pass and Josephine County. So I feel compelled to talk to you one more time about this law enforcement detention and juvenile levy. So I've been, as you are well aware from my many emails in recent weeks, you know I've been working as a volunteer on this law enforcement funding situation for many, many years, alongside of many, many other volunteers that have been working very hard on this situation for many, many years. I totally understand where you're at, and I agree with everything you said this morning on that topic. You're in a very hard spot right now. A few weeks ago, I kind of put myself in your shoes. What would I do if I were sitting in your seats? That was a very tough exercise because I got a little bit better sense of the gravity of the decision that's ahead of you on this topic. Having spent 5 years of spending a whole lot of time getting out there and talking to people about how they think, what level of service we should have in our law enforcement system and how they think we should pay for it. This is not necessarily a black and white financial issue. This is, the bottom line is this is a trust issue, and it's not something that any of you necessarily caused. You're playing the cards that you were dealt. This is not a fault of the current board or even the past board. This is a number of years of some very challenging circumstances. What's before you now is not necessarily whether you need to do something or not, because we do. We are up against it. What the basic decision, as I see it, is when do you do it? And I strongly feel that May of 2017 for a brand new law enforcement related levy is too soon. As an outsider looking in, it doesn't appear that there has been any coordination with the only 24/7 law enforcement agency in the county. It doesn't appear that your juvenile justice director or your district attorney was brought into the conversation, again, as an outsider looking in, and they probably were at some level. There's been, I haven't seen coordination with OSP. The meeting you had yesterday was a great start. That's exactly what we need to do 100 times over the next year. There is time to wait and spend time collaborating with everybody that needs to put input into this situation before we put another measure forward, if another measure does need to be put forward. And it probably will be at the end of the day. There hasn't been any coordination with the only private organization that I know of in Josephine County that's been working on this situation for the past 5 years. This has been a last-minute sort of effort, and that's not a great way to get across the finish line. There needs to be more coordination and a whole series of meetings, and I can show you how you can get until November of 2018
Thank you, Mr.
without
Meredith.
having to put a measure forward.
Appreciate it. In the back. Commissioner Walker, Cheryl Walker, did you want to speak as well? Let's go with Cheryl. Old habits die hard.
Cheryl Walker, Murphy, Oregon, and Commissioners Chair Hare and Commissioner Morgan and Commissioner DeYoung. I'm here this morning in regards to the public safety levy. And I know that a lot of thought goes into it, having sat on that side of the board, and know that you have talked to a lot of people, and I don't know exactly who because I've not even been there, not been part of that process, but I know that is the intent and purpose of all of you. You are very conscientious people. I think that to go forward with it, I think that perhaps in following along with what some of the other people have said about it, and I think this goes along the line of what Commissioner Morgan has said, that if you would hold community meetings and talk about the issues of the county, so many people don't understand the problem that we have. They don't understand the budget. They hear huge numbers. When you talk about 4 million and 10 million and 18 million, that's a lot of money. And I don't think they understand the cost of the government to provide the services that they're wanting and have demanded. So perhaps you would break it down by precinct and have someone hold meetings in the precincts for a question and answer. Make charts or explanations as to why these decisions are having to be made. I think that might go a long way in building the trust and in making the issue understood by more people within the county so that they would be more receptive to hearing the arguments on one side or the other. To hear them either way, I think would be important. To each Wednesday you can sit here and talk about it, or you can answer in a public meeting that is a formal type of meeting. But these informal meetings, I think, would provide a whole lot more opportunity for people who don't have the time to come here, or the people who are afraid to come up and stand and express their concerns. And there are many people like that. That's not a fault. It's just the type of people that sometimes they don't want to do that. And I think that would go a long ways towards helping people understand what this issue is going forward. I think also if you provide people with more information as to what has happened over the last 10 years. Over the last 10 years, it isn't just public safety that has suffered. There has been money drawn from every department in the county. Some have been cut loose entirely to raise their own funds. They don't get general fund money. So if more of that information is made available as far as embracing the technology, consolidating departments, privatizing departments. There's been many things that the boards have done over the last 10 years to actually take money from other departments to try to keep public safety going, and I think they would understand more about what is happening and the urgency before you. I think that I would like to express too that I've always been a very independent person. I've always hiked, ridden horses, done all that by myself. Have no fear. I have somewhat experienced that this last week or so. We hear gunshots all the time, 24 hours a day, out there where we live. And the other night, 11 o'clock at night, I heard 3 gunshots, pistols, likely a .38, not far from my back door. What is more terrifying than not knowing where those bullets will go in the dark is knowing someone's out there in my yard and there's no one to come. And I think that even though I'm independent, I live there with my husband and I have time, I think that we all need to pay attention to those people who are out there who can't take care of themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walker.
Morning, Commissioners. Kevin Marr, 2600 Rogue River Highway. Congratulations, Lily and Dan, on your elections, and thank you for serving the public. We really appreciate it. 3 quick points. I'm speaking here on the sheriff's levy. Been watching it develop all these years. I remember the day when the other Dave Daniel was sheriff, and we had 24-hour sheriff's patrols. I own a small business, a 24/7 business, so I on occasion do have need of, in the middle of the night, law enforcement. I don't get it. If I call 911, of course, I'm outside the city, so she very kindly tells me that Grants Pass police can't come, we'll have to wait for a trooper. These days, she just puts me straight, since there are more incidents, she puts me straight through to the dispatcher, the state trooper, and I can talk to the dispatcher. It seems like the point here that this is always, always, always defeated, and the number one reason that I seem to think that people defeat it, that I can guess why they vote no, because I really don't understand that, is the giant no new taxes. It wouldn't matter what it's for, whether it's for extra sheriff's patrols or jails or anything else. You're still going to get this no new taxes regardless. It's very difficult for me to, and I understand, Ms. Walker saying, trying to understand what the other person is saying, but on a very personal level, every night, my family is afraid, neighbors are afraid, probably 2-3 times a month, depending on how I assess it, where I live in my block area, I will break up a drug deal. I will ask some car of 3 people why they're sitting out here at 2 o'clock in the morning. The Oregon State Police are very cooperative, but they don't have the manpower, and they will come. So I try to hold back on calling them unless I really feel that I need to. In essence, I'm a layman, just a small businessman, simple, trying to do my thing, take care of my family and my guests, and I have to be Mr. Law Enforcement at night. I don't really like it. It's not fair. This is America, and we're all proud Americans here. And one thing I always grew up with, even in a very small rural town, gosh, if something happens at night, you can call the sheriff, and they'll be there, whatever. We don't have that. We've gotten so wrapped up in this thing and all of these different funding mechanisms and where we're going to get money from the feds and where we're going to get it from local. As far as the cost goes, I really would like some folks to explain to me, if I'm wrong, is 58 cents per thousand, is that what we're assessed?
It is, and unfortunately, your time is up.
Sorry.
I think you were
Okay.
on a really good track. I apologize.
That's all right. I just wanted to say, I can't afford it, but I will vote for it, and I please encourage you to do it, and I hope that everybody will try to come together.
Thank you very much for your time. Mr. Brown, and then we'll go.
Rika Brown, 1415 Southwest Bridge Street, Grants Pass. I'd like to speak up for anonymous complaints. Complaining about your neighbor is a dangerous business. In the city, there's no excuse for it. We shouldn't have to complain about our neighbors, except for things that are transient, like dogs barking and loud music. But for property maintenance, management, litter, we shouldn't have to complain. We have plenty of cops out there to see these obvious violations and report them to the community service to follow up on. But in the county, people are widely spread out. It's a big county. We have very few enforcers of any sort, particularly for property management. And so enforcement by complaint is proper, but it's still dangerous. And we should be able to complain anonymously. However, 2 anonymous complaints in and of itself doesn't tell you how often. It could be 2 years apart, it could be 5 years apart. I think there should be a limit, it should be 2 complaints within 6 months. And that's close enough in time that it's worth checking out. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes. Sorry, we were going to go to you. We'll do that.
My name is Rosemary Dorn, and I believe that all of you got an email from me on the situation that we're having at the end of our street. And so I kind of wanted to talk about, and I'm new at this, never been here before, so bear with me. I'm one of those more frightened citizens. But we hear guns going off in the middle of the night. We have a grow at the end of our street. And I guess I don't understand on this ban why it does not include other marijuana grows other than just the commercial. Because what I'm understanding from Sheriff Daniels is that you could have, as a medical marijuana grow, 98 plants in that area vicinity. And so whether it's a commercial grow or any kind of grow, we still have the same negative impact on our street. Two homes in our area this year sold to people that had moved out of areas that had large grows on them, only to find that at the end of our street we have a grow going on that has no permit that we can find. Nobody knows who the people are or knows where they live. We know who they are. We don't know where they live. They're not on the premises. They have no fencing around their property. And we can't call anybody. There's no one we can call. You call the sheriff's department and they only will come if it's a life and death situation. And so their only response to us as citizens on our street is form a neighborhood watch. And that's well and good, but what are we going to watch? I mean, who's going to do anything? We can watch the people come and go, race up and down our streets. The smell is so bad that you can't go out in your yard anymore. We can't open our windows at night. And so I guess I don't understand why it's only for this one type of grow that would infect our rural residential. And we're in an area where there's 5 acres. So that's kind of my comment. And my other comment goes to Mr. DeYoung, who I don't understand either, because I understood when we put this on the ballot to pass marijuana that we were going to get all this income from the cannabis industry. And now we're talking about how much money we need for this and that. Where's this money? Where's all this money we were supposed to get? But yet we as citizens have to put up with all the negatives that it brings. And as far as saying things like, oh, if you don't like it, move, that's not acceptable to us. We retired. I'm 73 years old. I'm on 100% pacemaker. I can't go out and fight these people next door, me by myself. We need help out there. We need you people to ask the citizens, because I can tell you the people that are around me, they are livid. And they don't see anything being done. So that's my comment.
Anyone else? Oh, right over here.
David Statenrouse, 1340 Burbridge Drive. Morning, Commissioners. I would encourage you to put it on the ballot. I can tell you a personal story. It's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate, why I'm out here doing these things to try and support law enforcement. I came from a community that it made a mistake. And I had a good friend that was a city councilor. He really wanted to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, we had allowed crime to continue to grow and to grow in our community. I lived across the street from an alcoholic who would drink in the middle of the night, blare his stereo, and I got to where you call the sheriff's department and they say, we have no one to come out. And all of the neighbors were complaining. We complained and complained and complained and complained. Years went by. Eventually I moved away. But the reality of the situation was crime had gotten out of control. The sheriff's department didn't have enough resources to deal with it. And I understand it. Someone blaring their stereo versus a crime where someone's been assaulted, they're probably going to go to the assault. I get all that. The problem is the quality of life went down. And I'm looking at our community and saying, you know what? We're kind of headed down that same road. We're at a point where criminals realize, what are you going to do to me? Seriously, you're going to give me a ticket? And I know I'm preaching to the choir, and I apologize about that. I would encourage you, I know this is not popular. And at the same time, I do know, If you throw it on the ballot, it is a democratic, it is an American thing to do. We will vote, we will either say yes, we'll say no, but at the end of the day, at least we decided as a community which way we're going to go. And that's all I have to say. I wish you the best. I hope all of this works out for everyone. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dittmer.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Thanks for stepping forward and working for governance of our community here. It's
Just
not
your
an
name
easy
and-
task.
name and
Excuse
your
me,
ad-
I'm Jim Dittmer from
Yes.
Grants Pass, Oregon. And I really am impressed with your work as well as the concerns of Dave Daniels and Chief Bill Landis and the concerns we have here locally to actually make our society function civilly. It's a very serious matter, I think. Of course, we have a lot of volunteers, and we have the fire and medical people and others who help. But we still have a great shortfall here in terms of even an understanding in the community of the importance and the need to have immediate response to personal problems that arise. And to me, this is really, we're in a struggle here. We're like in a war of the minds between the people who want civil society and those who don't care, that are happy with tyranny or anarchy. To me, personal freedom is lost when the rule of law is not applied or cannot be applied or upheld, and it's very serious. And I'm very pleased that you're putting this on the ballot, and prayerfully why this will pass. But for us, we have a need here to understand, too, that the O&C fundings aren't going to come. I've looked back with our friend here, Jim Frick. He's big on the O&C. And I've looked back at that and read a lot of work, different legal work that's been done. And we've been in a struggle to gain funds and the use of our lands for almost 100 years now. I mean, almost 100 years, and we've made no progress. As a matter of fact, we've regressed as compared to making progress. So the idea that we might have a contribution from the federal government or somewhere else that's going to solve our problem is just a fantasy land. It's not going to happen. And so I think that for that reason, we have to see that funding is the responsibility of Josephine County. And it's the no-tax voters and those advocates, even including our local Republican chapter here, imagine that, argue against funding for criminal justice. They say we should have no taxes. They don't want to fund a civil society. And so I just think that we should really get the word out that all citizens of goodwill should vote yes to pass this levy in support of our health, safety, and welfare, and for all citizens, and certainly for children traveling to and from school and women outside shopping,
Mr. Dittmer.
going to and from school. Well, I'm out of time? Okay,
Sorry,
thanks.
sir, I'm sorry.
Anyway, support it. Appreciate it.
Mr. Hunker.
A couple of things, Bill Hunker, Merlin, Oregon. A couple of things, it bothers me that we don't have an answer to the question before we ask voters to vote on whether or not their property permanently goes into a district and the people they sell it to now take that responsibility on. If we don't have that answer, that you are asking the voter without information to vote on that, and that bothers me a lot. And it was new this time. They did not mention this on the first go-round. So this is we're getting it this morning. You're voting, an hour later. I think that that needs to be looked at. On the levy, here we go again. I don't know if you've looked at the last 6 levies and how they went down. You're not gaining ground one of the reasons you're not gaining ground is every time you look up, you do a levy. And what they're saying is, can't they hear? I'm going to vote. One small, tiny precinct voted yes by 3 votes. Every single precinct in this entire county voted no. That's what you got. You jumped 7 points this time. You jumped only 2 the time before. There was 119,000 put on that one. There was 69,000 put on this one, this last one. And you're just going to, again, part of the problem of trust is that if you keep doing this, they're saying, man alive, we're just going to double down. They don't seem to understand. The other thing that I want to say is I was here in 2013 when the levy was proposed, and Keith Heck ended up saying, I strongly suggest we don't have a 5-year. In fact, I think he said he wasn't going to vote for it if it was 5-year, because he said, and this was his very first go-around, I won't be here in 5 years, but I'll be here in 3 years, and the people can then see that I'm going to do something in that 3 years, and they can hold me responsible because I won't be out of office. There will be an election for all of you before the next time you have to look at 5 years. You are in no way responsible for your actions on what you decide today if that levy passes, and you say you're going to come up with another idea. You're gone. The public can't hold you responsible. Every one of you could possibly be gone, and 2 of you have already publicly said you would be. So it's real great to say, oh, we're going to really work hard. That's exactly what Keith Heck said. He said, we're going to solve this thing in 3 years, and that way the public will know. So we're right back there. In my view, we just step back. Have some things been done? Absolutely, and kudos for all that has been done. All the suits that have been brought and so forth. There's been progress made. But this is the same old. In 2014, the ballot title was virtually identical. You had the jail, you had juvenile justice. The public is not going to see that as anything different than you had 3 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hooker. There is something about the way you speak in that mic that reverberates. I'm not sure what it is. Anyone else for 3 minutes? I'm going to bring it back to the board. I did cancel my